Free Trader Journal, December 6, 1921. Independence for Irish in Peace Act. Unlooked-for turn in events makes of South a free state. Birmingham, England, December 6. By the AP, Ireland hereafter will be known officially as the Irish Free State under the agreement reached at last night's conference. It was announced by Lord Chancellor Birkenhead in an address here today. In outlining the general terms of the agreement, the Lord Chancellor said, "We propose in the first place that within the area of Southern Ireland we shall make those who, beyond all question within that area at this moment, are entitled to speak for the overwhelming majority of the population, masters in their own house. With one single important reservation," declared Lord Birkenhead, "we place Ireland precisely in the position of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, and there is no power subject to the reservation which I shall indicate that is given to any one of these great self-governing dominions that we shall not equally concede to the state which is to be created." Lord Birkenhead said the Parliament to be set up would be supreme in its own domain in the matters of finance, but that arbitrators would determine the amount to be assumed by Ireland as her proportion of the national debt and war expenditure. "There is only one reservation to be made," he added. "If Ulster decides to stand side by side with England, we are committed in one respect to a modification of the parliamentary arrangements of a year ago. There must be a ratification of frontiers. We do not propose to interfere with the arrangement of counties. It is proposed a commission examine into the boundary line with a view of rendering improvement to the boundary. It might be rectified on one side or the other." Lord Birkenhead, who is one of the signers of the epoch-making document, declared the conference had made secure the safety of Great Britain and Ireland. In the same room at No. 10 Downing Street, which witnessed the loss of the American colonies and the most momentous decisions in the Great War, a new phase of Great Britain's history has been entered, he said. London happily surprised. London, December 6 by the AP. England and Ireland awoke today from a troubled sleep of despondency over the Irish situation to learn the joyous news of a sensational and wholly unexpected agreement reached between the English and Irish conferees in today's small hours. The negotiations for a settlement were considered yesterday to have definitely collapsed, and the compromise achieved in Premier Lloyd George's sombre little home in Downing Street, after a night-long struggle, seems likely to be chronicled as the most momentous event in the history of Anglo-Irish relations. While the agreement must still be submitted to the Dáil Éireann and the British Parliament for ratification, there was a disposition in all quarters in London today to regard the outlook as of the brightest. The agreement reached binds both sides to recommend it to their parliaments. It is a formal, detailed, and conclusive document, and its terms prevent the necessity of further negotiations. Dáil Éireann to draft bill. Should the Dáil Éireann agree to the document and a disagreement is not looked for as it meets satisfactorily the points raised by the Sinn Féin, it will be embodied in a bill and submitted to the British Parliament, which is expected to be called in special session to consider it. The consent of Ulster is not required to make the new Irish agreement effective. She is given the option of withdrawal in a month, reverting then to her present status within territory to be decided by a boundary commission. While the agreement has been sent to Sir James Craig, the Ulster Premier, an unfavourable decision from him will not prevent the scheme from maturing. Provisional government. Provisional government would be formed in Southern Ireland while the British Parliament is considering the agreement. On the question of allegiance, a form of words was found which satisfied both the government and the Sinn Féin. The recognition of Ireland as an independent state is said to be clear. The principle at least adopted by the government is said to have been that of trusting Ireland fully and giving her full power of decision without hampering her by conditions. It is also understood that an arrangement satisfactory to the Sinn Féin was reached regarding control of Irish ports by the Navy. South to be independent. London, December 6. Although the Irish peace terms have not been officially made known, some of the principal points are unofficially understood to be recognition of Ireland as an independent state, with a formula on the question of allegiance satisfactory to both sides. Inclusion of Ulster within the scope of the new Irish government, with the option of withdrawing within 1 month, reverting in that case to her present status within territory fixed by a boundary commission. Freedom with regard to tariff questions. Arrangements providing control of Irish ports by the Navy. Withdrawal of all military forces, incurring peaceful conditions.
Chickasha Daily Express, December 6, 1921. Free state for Irish as a result of recent pact. Will have same status as Canada, excepting certain finance matters. Must pay portion of national war debt. Same room saw lost American colonies. Pact signed in room where independence colonies granted. Situation snatched from flames at 11th hour. By United Press, Birmingham, England, December 6. Ireland under the peace settlement will be known as an Irish Free State, Lord Chancellor Birkenhead announced today. Provisions of the agreement as outlined by Lord Birkenhead are a new dominion to be known as an Irish Free State, having the same status as Canada, with one reservation in finance matters. The Free State government will rule supreme, but the new government must pay her portion of the national war debt. The Sinn Féin must give a reasonable guarantee to South Ireland Unionist minority. The pact was signed in the same room that witnessed the loss of the American colonies, Lord Birkenhead said. By United Press, London, December 6th, Irish peace negotiations were snatched from the flames today. An 11th-hour agreement between British representatives and Sinn Féin delegates was reached in the wee small hours of the morning in Downing Street after many hours of discussion of the peace problem. Immediately following the agreement, the pact was being rushed to Belfast with sanction of the Ulster officials. That they would accept was considered most probable. The British Parliament is to be summoned today to consider the pact, which is also to be reviewed by the Dáil Éireann in Dublin today. The authorities are confident that the agreement will meet the approval of all factions. The details are to be published Wednesday morning. There is only speculation as to the contents, but it is understood that the plan embodies a Dominion Parliament from which Ulster will be privileged to withdraw. The delegates looked very tired and grave as they left the Premier's residence to enter waiting cars. Asked whether he had anything to say, Michael Collins, the Sinn Féin finance minister, answered sharply, not a word. A train was kept in waiting from 8 o'clock in the evening with full steam up, ready to rush the couriers who would speed on their way to Belfast to carry the Sinn Féin agreement to Sir James Craig. A man of war was standing outside at Holyhead Harbour, ready to carry the couriers to Belfast, where the agreement is to be presented to the Ulster Cabinet for their consideration. Negotiations between the leaders of the Sinn Féin and Ulster elements in Ireland and the British government were started on June 25, 1921, 3 days after King George's appeal for peace at the opening of the Ulster Parliament in Belfast, when Premier Lloyd George invited Eamon de Valera and Sir James Craig. The Ulster Premier to confer with him in London. De Valera accepted the invitation on July 8th, and thereupon a truce was agreed to, taking effect July 11th. Members of the Dáil Éireann or Irish Parliament, who were in prison, were set free to enable them to vote on proposals for a settlement of the long conflict. Others who were in hiding were offered immunity from arrest or prosecution, so that they also could attend a meeting of the Dáil. The Irish Republican leader, however, expressed an unwillingness to attend a parley until he first had obtained the views of Craig and other Irish minority spokesmen, meanwhile declaring he could see no avenue for peace while Irish unity and self-determination were denied. Craig declined to attend the Dublin Conference, arranged for July 4th, but continued on page 8.
Indiana Daily Times, December 6, 1921. British OK Irish peace settlement. Pact permits Ulster to maintain present status. King overjoyed, sends message of congratulation to Lloyd George. Text of Oath, London, December 6th. The text of the Oath of Allegiance to which the Irish shall subscribe under the Irish Free State follows. I do solemnly swear to faith and allegiance of the Irish Free State as by law established, and that I will be faithful to His Majesty, King George V, his heirs and successors by law, in virtue of the common citizenship of Ireland with Great Britain and her adherence and membership to the group of nations forming the British Commonwealth of Nations. London, December 6th. The British Cabinet this afternoon unanimously approved the Irish peace settlement reached early today by the British and Sinn Féin delegates. It is understood Ulster will have the option of maintaining her present status, but it is proposed to appoint a commission to delimit the boundaries of Tyrone and Fermanagh counties. The Sinn Féin claim these counties wholly or in part on the ground of political belief. It is understood Premier Lloyd George is hopeful Ulster will accept the peace agreement, as it is said to give Ulster full guarantees. A special train was held under steam to carry the special courier to Belfast. Continued on page 2.
Ocala Evening Star, December 7, 1921. To establish the Irish Free State. King George calls Parliament in special session to take momentous agreement into consideration. London, December 7, by Associated Press. King George came to London today to preside at the meeting of the Privy Council and sign a proclamation calling a special session of Parliament for Wednesday next to consider the momentous agreement reached yesterday between Great Britain and Ireland for establishment of the Irish Free State. Irish patriots, free men again. Proclamation from King George today gives all political prisoners their liberty. London, December 7, by Associated Press. King George today issued a proclamation releasing all political prisoners interned in Ireland. Craig says he has nothing to say. Belfast, December 7, by the Associated Press. Sir James Craig, Ulster Premier, told the Ulster Parliament today he did not think it expedient to make any statement regarding the details of the new Irish proposals, as there were ambiguities here and there in the document.
Perth Amboy Evening News, December 7, 1921. King to sign proclamation. Calls for special session of Parliament to act on Irish peace. Will make Free State. No hitch in plans for final peace and lasting settlement is expected. London, December 7, by the Associated Press. King George came here from Sandringham today to preside at a meeting of the Privy Council and sign a proclamation, calling a special session of Parliament for Wednesday next to consider the momentous agreement reached yesterday between Great Britain and Ireland for the establishment of the Irish Free State, should the agreement be approved, of which little doubt is entertained. The session will last only a few days, and the Parliament will adjourn until the regular session in February, when a bill embodying the agreement will be dealt with. The King's expected to open the special session in person, in which case the ceremony will assume the dignity and magnificence of a regular opening of Parliament. The King's speech will deal entirely with the Irish question, and the debate, which ordinarily on such an occasion touches upon every subject with which the Parliament has to do, will likewise be limited to Irish affairs. No Ulster Statement. Belfast, December 7, by the Associated Press. Sir James Craig, the Ulster Premier, told the Ulster Parliament today he did not think it expedient to make any statement with regard to the details of the new Irish approval, as there were ambiguities here and there in the document. Also, the Premier stated there was a considerable amount of further information he must have in his possession before he could come to the right conclusion.
Richmond Times-Dispatch, December 7, 1921. Irish win independence by the new Magna Carta. Free State of Ireland assumes full dominion status like that of Canada and other associated nations. Text of agreement ending Irish dispute. Ireland to have same constitutional status in British Empire as Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. By Associated Press, London, December 6th. The complete terms of the agreement signed by representatives of Sinn Féin in England granting independence to Ireland follows. Article 1. Ireland shall have the same constitutional status in the community of nations known as the British Empire, as the Dominion of Canada, the Commonwealth of Australia, the Dominion of New Zealand, and the Union of South Africa, with a parliament having powers to make laws for peace and order and good government in Ireland, and an executive responsible to that parliament, and shall be styled and known as the Irish Free State. Article 2. Subject to provisions hereinafter set out, the position of the Irish Free State in relation to the Imperial Parliament, the government, and otherwise shall be that of the Dominion of Canada, and the law practice and constitutional usage governing the relationship of the Crown or representative of the Crown and the Imperial Parliament to the Dominion of Canada shall govern their relationship to the Irish Free State. To have Governor-General. Article 3 of the agreement provides that a representative of the Crown in Ireland shall be appointed in like manner as the Governor-General of Canada, and in accordance with the practice observed in making such appointments. The Articles of Agreement in the treaty between Great Britain and Ireland, as the agreement reached last night is designated, provides in Article 4 that the oaths to be taken by the members of the Parliament of the Irish Free State shall be in the following form. Article 4. I do solemnly swear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the Irish Free State as by law established, and that I will be faithful to His Majesty, King George V and his heirs and successors by law, in virtue of the common citizenship of Ireland with Great Britain and her adherence to, and continued on page 2, call 2. Belfast is nonplussed over signing of treaty. Tremendous excitement prevails as Parliament assembles to consider situation. Feeling of doubt prevails. Statement from Ulster Premier will be delayed for present until he can give careful study to the new pact. By Associated Press, Belfast, December 6th. A statement from the Ulster Premier on the Irish settlement will be delayed for some days. The news that a treaty between England and Ireland had been concluded has nonplussed Belfast. When Parliament assembled, tremendous excitement prevailed. There was great curiosity mixed with anxiety as to how Ulster would fare under the treaty. Craig receives treaty. Sir James Craig announced in the course of the sitting of the House that the treaty had been received, but he had not read it, and the House adjourned after transacting routine business. The Cabinet assembled immediately to consider the new situation, and later Colonel Spender, Secretary of the Cabinet, formally announced that another Cabinet Council would be held tomorrow to continue the discussion. On Thursday, a party meeting of government supporters will be convened to consider the settlement. Colonel Spender pointed out that there were a great many points requiring elucidation, which might necessitate further correspondence before any decision could be made by the Ulster Cabinet. Dislikes form of oath. In reply to questions, he declared that if the South were going to continue hostile, it would be better to have it out now. But if the South really intended to act with friendliness, that would put a different complexion on affairs. He admitted that the first impression of the Ulster government was one of puzzlement. He thought that details were likely to afford more trouble than the broad outlines. Ulster disliked the form of the oath proposed, but if it was acceptable to the British people, Ulster would not object. The general feeling in Belfast today was rather of doubt and distrust. Pact still to run gauntlet in 3 legislative bodies. Imperial Parliament and Dáil Éireann support deemed certain. King congratulates Premier on outcome. General rejoicing is seen over successful conclusion of negotiations. By Associated Press, London, December 6th. The centuries-old quarrel between England and Ireland was ended, as had been fervently hoped in the small hours of Tuesday morning by the signature in the Prime Minister's cabinet room of a treaty between Great Britain and Ireland, consisting of 18 articles, giving Ireland the title of the Irish Free State and the same constitutional status as Canada, Australia, and other overseas dominions. The question of allegiance, which up to the last moment threatened to wreck the negotiations, was surmounted by permitting the members of the Irish Parliament to swear allegiance to the Constitution of the Irish Free State and be faithful to His Majesty the King. Still to run legislative gauntlet. The treaty has yet to run the gauntlet of the Ulster government and of the Imperial Parliament. The Imperial Parliament has been summoned to meet on December 14th and will be opened in state by the King, who has taken the closest personal interest in the Irish negotiations, since he practically instigated them when he opened the Ulster Parliament. Approval by the Imperial Parliament is a foregone conclusion, as the government has an overwhelming majority in the House of Commons favoring its Irish policy, and its action of the British representatives in reaching the agreement has already been unanimously endorsed by the Cabinet. The position of Ulster is less certain. Evidence comes from Belfast tonight that the treaty will be subjected to the most searching examination before receiving assent, and doubtless many modifications will be proposed. King sends congratulations. The King hastened to send the Prime Minister a telegram congratulating him on the success of the negotiations and declaring, "I am overjoyed to hear the splendid news." The King will come to London purposely tomorrow to preside over the Privy Council to approve the proclamation summoning Parliament, as the Constitution requires a 6 days' notice by royal proclamation. The treaty was signed by all the members of the British and Irish delegations participating in the negotiations, the Irish delegates signing their Gaelic names. Ireland is treated as a single entity in the provisions of the treaty, with special clauses providing against the possibility that Ulster should refuse acquiescence in the settlement, in which case the government of Ireland of 1920 will remain in force so far as the Northern Parliament is concerned, but with the stipulation that the Special Commission shall determine new boundaries for Northern Ireland. Religious freedom guaranteed. Provisions also are made for the cooperation of the two parliaments in providing certain safeguards in the event of Ulster remaining out of the new Free State. Neither parliament, however, will be permitted under the treaty to make laws endowing any particular religion or to impose any religious disability. The treaty looks to Ireland in the future undertaking its own coastal defense and provides that Ireland shall in time of war give the British forces necessary harbor and other facilities. It further, by providing against international limitation of armaments, recognizes the Irish Free State's right to maintain its own military defense force. Birkenhead, large figure. Premier Lloyd George is the recipient of universal congratulations for having successfully rescued the negotiations from what appeared to be an impasse. The general belief, however, is that Lord Birkenhead, who came to the government's rescue when the question of renewal of the Anglo-Japanese treaty had reached a critical stage, is this time responsible for the formula overcoming the allegiance difficulty. Austen Chamberlain, who is leader, continued on page 2.
Palatka Daily News, December 7th, 1921. Ireland is soon to be a free state. Harding tells Congress nations need. Quarrel of centuries comes to an end with signing of new treaty. Ulster may oppose it, but will just stay on outside. Premier commended. King sends felicitation to Prime Minister for his work. By Associated Press, London, December 6th. The centuries-old quarrel between England and Ireland was ended, as had been fervently hoped in the small of Tuesday morning, by the signature in the Prime Minister's cabinet rooms of a treaty between Great Britain and Ireland consisting of 18 articles giving Ireland the title of the Irish Free State and the same institutional status as Canada, Australia, and other overseas dominions. The question of allegiance, which, up to the last moment, threatened to wreck the negotiations, was surmounted by permitting the members of the Irish Parliament to swear allegiance to the Constitution of the Irish Free State and be faithful to His Majesty, the King. Must get by Ulster. The treaty has yet to run the gauntlet of the Ulster government and of the Imperial Parliament. The Imperial Parliament has been summoned to meet on December 14th and will be opened in state by the King. Approval by the Imperial Parliament is a foregone conclusion, as the government has an overwhelming majority in the House of Commons favoring its Irish policy. The position of Ulster is less certain. Evidence comes from Belfast tonight that the treaty will be subject to the most searching examination before receiving assent, and doubtless many modifications will be proposed. King congratulates Lloyd George. The King hastened to send the Prime Minister a telegram congratulating him on the success of the negotiations and declaring, "I am overjoyed to hear the splendid news." Ireland is treated as a single entity in the provisions of the treaty, with special clauses providing against the possibility that Ulster should refuse acquiescence in the settlement, in which case the Government of Ireland Act of 1920 will remain in force, so far as the Northern Parliament is concerned, but with the stipulations that a special commission shall determine new boundaries for Northern Ireland. Provisions also are made for the cooperation of the two parliaments and providing certain safeguards in the event of Ulster remaining out of the new Free State. Neither parliament, however, will be permitted, under the treaty, to make laws endowing any particular religion or to impose any religious disability. Can have own military. The treaty looks to Ireland in the future undertaking its own coastal defense and provides that Ireland shall in time of war give the British forces necessary harbor and other facilities. It further, by providing against international limitation of armament, recognizes the Irish Free State rights to maintain its own military defense forces. Premier Lloyd George is a recipient of universal congratulations for having successfully rescued the negotiations from what appeared to be an impasse. The general belief, however, is that Lord Birkenhead, who came to the government's rescue when the question of renewal of the Japanese-Anglo Treaty had reached a critical stage, is this time responsible for formula overcoming the allegiance difficulty.